What we have here is a scrap find. Yes, that's right. This was going to get hauled off to a scrap heap and get crushed up and shredded and turned into, oh goodness only knows what, like Pepsi cans or something. But I intercepted it, came from work, I had one hell of a time getting it home. I think I'm going to use a different camera to shoot this video because I am not in the mood to deal with focusing issues. Alright, we've changed cameras now. This one doesn't have a video light, but I've got plenty enough light to work with anyways. See, that's the nice thing about tape-based formats, is you can change cameras in the middle of shooting the video, and you will get one seamless cut. You won't have, with digital cameras that record to flash media, you have potentially differing formats, you've got to put the files together, and it's a mess. You got to get the files to the computer, although in theory it's easy, but with this it's even easier because you can just use one camera to import all the footage. But anyways, I digress. What we got here is a Sony CDP-C545. Very, very high-end unit. What used to be right here was actually a Sony CDP-C235, and I was disappointed with that particular unit because it would skip on CDs where it frankly had no reason to skip. I don't know why it was doing that, but this one doesn't seem to do that in the same position. So maybe potentially the laser is going bad. That was reportedly a problem with Sony equipment such as that. I did clean it with a cleaning CD, but I decided that, you know, when I got this, I decided, you know what, I'll just put this in the setup and be done with it. I'm not going to mess around with anything not working. It seems to support timer play functionality, which is interesting. The controls are laid out in a fairly similar fashion, although something interesting I'll point out when I turn it on with those play and pause buttons. You might be able to see what it is if I can get the zoom to work here. And the focus. You might be able to see what it is, but I'm not quite sure. It does have the disc exchange system, which is actually a fairly ingenious feature. Something the 235 didn't have is the headphone output. There's your controls that are pretty much the same, and then we've got something interesting here called Music Clip, File Erase, and then that says Time Memo. It also says Custom File up here. Reading the manual, it appears as though this thing can do quite a few interesting, shall we say, goodies. It's got a few tricks up its sleeve. There we can see the display, and potentially a few unused characters. It's got a matrix display for the trackless track stuff. Okay, on the back, I can't really go around to the back, but on the back there is an optical digital output and your regular RCA output that I'm using. So, let me go get a CD and we'll have this thing perform for you. Well, I just found my incandescent flashlight. That stinks. I'm gonna have to buy one at the dollar store. Fortunately, they do have them there. And they're cheap enough at least. Okay, let's go ahead and fire it up. There you can hopefully see the matrix display. Go ahead and push eject and begin loading CDs. I don't think I could do this with one hand, but I'll try. Oops. I forgot about that. That case is broken. And I just knocked the flashlight on the floor. Isn't that nice? Always lovely. Like I said, I'm not sure I could do this with one hand. Some of the people who watch UXW Bill videos will probably recognize this album. When I saw it, I had to buy it. And hey, it's always good to expand your music collection. Actually, I don't mind that album at all. I think it's actually rather good. Okay, I wasn't positive which mixer it was actually on, so I just went ahead and turned both of them on. turn up the 2-track there. Or not the 2-track, the control room. Go ahead and, let's see, this should be a Genesis CD, so we can go ahead and skip to track 2 and play. There you can see something interesting. Here's the thing that I was mentioning. There's the light. Both the pause and the play button actually have a light, which is not something that the 235 has. Let's skip through a bunch of it here. Skip a few tracks. Here's the time functionality. Here's the fader that it's got. You can go ahead and fade it back up. Alright, let me turn that off, and we're going to demonstrate something else. Let's see what the disc exchange does. So you can see, it's still playing. And we've got the tray open. Can't normally do that. We press disc skip. It'll go ahead and show us the other discs. We press it again. That's what it will do. Now I'm not sure if you are supposed to press disc exchange or open and close at this point. But I guess you can press either of them. And it'll work fine. Let's skip discs. It seems to not know that there's now a disc in number 1. I'm totally going to get my video muted by the Music Mafia. So there's a demonstration of all of the disc positions. There is also a, let's see here. There's a feature known as Music Scan, Peak Search, and also a couple other things. Time Fade, and all of that. Let me shut that off. So that doesn't screw that up. And then of course there's the time play, but I'm not going to demonstrate any of that because it's too complicated for me. And I'm not quite sure how any of it works. But there is more, so don't go away. Unlike certain CD players of times past, and even also of present times, fortunately, the majority of Sony equipment does not require that you have the remote control in order to do just about anything with it. The Yamaha will not even let you use the program feature without the remote control, which I think is frankly stupid. And the TX that I showed you before in the closet is the same way. I used to have it in the setup, actually, funny enough, right where the Yamaha is. So that's kind of unfortunate. I really don't like that decision. But the Sony equipment does not generally require that you have the remote unless it's for the most advanced of features. And the CDP-C545 is certainly no exception. However, I do have the remote control. And it makes one particular feature of this thing that I'm about to demonstrate for you very, very, very easy. So we're going to go ahead to disc 1 here. And disc 1, if we remember, was Genesis self-titled album. There's a curious button on this remote, if we can get some focus, titled Memo Input. We go ahead and push it. That's what appears on the screen. And we can actually enter in a title. Now, it's got very limited character support. The other thing you could do is you could use these buttons on the front. I believe it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 characters. It supports 10 characters. To set it, you press the time memo button on the front of the unit, or I guess you could press the time button on the remote control, and then it appears. And even when you change discs, let's say to disc 3, when you go back to disc 1, I don't want you to play, please, it will still say it. Now, these disappear when you eject, because obviously it can't really store much of that in memory. There are things that it does store in memory, but that's not one of them. So it doesn't remember what CD was there, so you got to enter it in all over again. But, hey, I guess they figure by that point you're probably putting another disc in there anyways, which is not a very unreasonable thing to expect. And then if we go ahead and press play, hit the time button, see it displays current time, remaining time on the whole CD, and the CD name that you just entered. So I thought that was pretty cool, actually. Another thing that I just actually discovered now is the ability to group tracks, I'm assuming on a per CD base, within something called a music clip. I'm not sure why they call it music clip and not music selection, but that's what they call it. So that's exactly what I've done. I've got 3 groups set here. You can get some focus on that. A, B, and D. Let's go ahead and have a listen to A. So we can see that's what's in A. Oops. Maybe we can't see it, that's what's in A. And then it'll stop. Here's what we've got in B. Just the one track. There's nothing in C, so it just says no clip. And then in D, that's what we've got. That's actually pretty cool. I like that. Okay, so I told a little bit of a fib earlier. I've just learned that apparently you can actually store what they call a memo, a disc memo, along with the disc. I'm not quite sure how this works in terms of CDs. Maybe it doesn't work. I really couldn't profess to tell you. Well, look at that. It does work. That's pretty neat. I'll have to do that from now on. Oh, wow. Okay. Anyways. Another feature is what they call the delete bank. You can see I've got one set here with the following tracks. This is again on the Genesis CD. So we go ahead and press play. It'll start at track 2 instead of track 1. You press skip, it'll go to 5. Then to 6. And then to 7. And that's it. When we go for shuffle, oops. Actually, that wasn't quite what I had in mind. So, anyways, forget I did that. When we go to program, you can do it with program, continue play, program, we select 8, apparently it can still do it, it's interesting.
I didn't think it could still do that. I really didn't think it could still do that. But I guess it can, so there's one thing, I suppose. But I guess it's so that you don't, or for shuffle play mode, so it only plays the songs that you want. I guess if we go ahead and press shuffle play for one disc, yes, there we go. Yep, that works. Okay. Alright, I believe that is all that I need to say about this particular unit. There is, actually, I think somebody asked me, there is a higher end unit than this. This is, I believe, one of the higher, if not one of the highest end Sony CD changers of its time period. But there is one higher than this. It's the Sony CDP-C545. And it supports such fancy things as digital signal processing and also optimum level playback. I think those are the only two things I can think of at the top of my head that it also supports. But it's basically the same unit. It's just uses a few of the unused indicators. In fact, if we take a look here, you might be able to see, if we get some focus, that this unit has the unused indicators for DSP and also for level in the custom file that this unit just doesn't support. Most of my use of such a thing consists of playing one song using the program feature, so admittedly it's a little bit higher end and more feature rich than I would probably be able to make use of, but it's nice to have the features here for maybe the off chance I have a party in here. Not that this place is big enough for a party, but on the off chance that something like that happens, or if I take it somewhere and then I can use it for that. That's actually fairly cool. And maybe I'll even use it on something like the live broadcast for a one-off thing, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. But anyways, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. And this is CP666 signing off. I hope to see you next time. Till then.